was a sky, but there's something in the skies you can't deny. Fighter pilots saw them, chased them through the blue, but when they told the world the truth, got buried too. Men in black with their secrets tight, hiding what we saw that night. They write it off, say it's pretend, but the questions never end. They're already here, watching from above, hiding in the skies. What are they thinking of? Do they come in peace or bring us fear? The question's not if, it's why are they here? Australian schoolyard, the craft touched down. Teachers froze, kids gathered round, but the story disappeared like it never took place, erased by suits with no trace. Men in black with their secrets tight, hiding what we saw that night. They write it off, say it's pretend, but the questions never end. They're already here, watching from above, hiding in the skies. What are they thinking of? Do they come in peace or bring us fear? The question's not if, it's why are they here? Are they here to save us from our endless fight? Or will they rise and take the night? Do they watch us with a heavy heart? Or is this the plan they've had from the start? They're already here, watching from above, hiding in the skies. What are they thinking of? Do they come in peace or bring us fear? The question's not if, it's why are they here? So look to the stars and open your mind. The truth is out there, it's not hard to find. Aliens or angels, the story's unclear, but one thing's for sure, they're already here.
G'day folks, how you going? Welcome back to another episode of Encounters Down Under. Thanks for joining me wherever you tune in from there. If you are new to the channel there, it's great to have you here joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel there if you haven't already there, and share it out with your friends and families. Also, if you had an encounter with something unknown, yowies, UFOs, paranormal, please hit me up. Love to get you on the podcast here and have a bit of a chin wag with you and talk about your experiences there and your encounters. There's a lot of things out there that we don't understand there, and the more people who talk about it, the more likely other people are going to go and talk about themselves. And it's bring out the reality that there is things out there we don't understand. So hopefully try and unleash the truth a bit more. I'm a little bit snotty and whatnots because I've just come back from a bloody sinus infection, so all gunked up and whatnots. But we're going to work through it, and the show must continue on. But anyway, I've got another awesome episode here for you to go and enjoy. I've got David Lovegrove, who is the author of Viking Superpowers books there, which is in the link there. And we're going to go on chinwag with David again and talk about his, his history of researching into Nordic lore and, his past experiences there. And let's get him on here. Let's get this thing going. Where are we? That one there. And there we go. David, g'day, mate. How you going?
G'day, Anthony. I'm great, mate. How are you?
Going good, mate. It's great to have you back on here, mate. We had a good chat there last time there, learning about your history there and a bit of research there, and we're here to continue it on. And Last time you had like a few near-death experiences there, and you also nearly managed to go and join the space version of the Mile High Club there at some
Ah,
stage.
yeah.
um, uh, but yeah, you sort of passed off that offer. But you're here with us today anyway, still. and look, mate, where's your research taking with you today? Like, I know you've also been busy with this Upper Main encounter down in New South Wales there, which is quite incredible. Which is not many people know about this one there. Even myself, I wasn't really aware of it. So where do you want to start off? Do you want to start off at the Upper Mains
Yeah.
encounter?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I My friend, she's one of those people in a small town. You sort of get to know certain people over many years. I've lived in this town for over 20 years, and uh, Shana is just a local identity. Ran this classic music studio. Everyone used to go there. I'd go and hire the drum kit sometimes because I have been a drummer in the past, and I just for the sake of it go and have a bash on the drums. She and I would have a chin wag. It turned out that her husband was really into UFOs, and so he and I would talk, and then I discovered she was right into it. And I was telling them about this experience I had in Brisbane at Acacia Ridge when I was a kid, that I remembered hiding from a flying saucer. And it was outside my window and it was coming to get me. And I was about 7 at the time. And then 2016, I was in that area doing some work, and I thought, I wonder if there's ever been UFOs reported in this area. And first thing that came up was literally something that happened, about 700 meters from where I grew up. So I told her that story, and my testimony and the testimony of this young girl who's now same age as me at the time is going on this Aussie show that's about to come out. It's airing in the UK. It's what the exact name is eluding me right now. I'll remember it, but it's going to be exciting because they thoroughly interviewed me about this story. And this girl, or this lady who was a girl at the time, we think we were both taken onto that craft. I think she definitely was. I just think that all I can remember is hiding from the thing, and I think they just put me back in bed. But I told the whole story of all of this to the interviewers. But so my friend Shana said, well, something landed at my primary school when I was a kid in the 70s. And that just stopped me in my tracks. I said, seriously? She said, yeah, the whole school saw it. We all saw it. And it stayed there for about a minute, could have been a bit longer. And so I was excited about that. But at the time, I had a lot of things going on. And I didn't catch up with her for ages. And yeah, I suppose it was almost 9 years actually. It always was in the back of my mind. I must get back to her about that. And we ran into each other not so long ago, and I said, well, let's actually move on this. Let's go. Have you got any other people from the time who could come with us, and we'll go out and have a look where it all happened. You can tell us about it. And she said that she'd been trying to get people, and a number of people had admitted to her that they remembered it, but they were unfortunately, sort of shy of coming forward. And I think people have this Men in Black thing pretty strong in their heads. And I don't know how much of that is also just worried about ridicule from neighbours and friends, or if people are particularly religious. There can be that, idea that this is somehow the devil's work, and this is a thing we're going to have to deal with in the near future. Is a lot of religious people that want to paint anything that they don't understand and that it's not specifically spelled out in the Bible or whatever other book, then it must be evil, which to me is just as dumb as you can get. It's a really medieval, dumb way of thinking, but that's just, many people are like that. But the thing is, she had a friend who was a little older who was at the school that day, Carl, and he was prepared to come forward. So we all met at UKI. My daughter Rose came along. She did the camera work. I'm wearing this big daggy hat and a big purple wind cheater because I just had a bit of skin cancer treatment, and the doctor said, you got to be paranoid at the moment, just don't get any sun on you. So anyway, I sort of like the fact that we all looked like just slightly daggy country people telling the truth, and we drove out, and on my YouTube channel, Viking Superpowers, I've got the interview and the adventure. So we go out to, it's called Upper Main Arm, and we're in northern New South Wales, and this is an area most people know. Byron Bay, they know Mullumbimby, they know Tweed Heads. Many people do know my town, Murwillumbah. So it's a fair bit south, not a real long way, but it's about 3/4 of an hour south of where I live. And we went out through UKI, which is a famous sleepy little hippie town. Every weekend there's hundreds of bikes go through there. People just love the windy roads and just the beauty. It's all mountains and forests, and perfect old-fashioned twisting country roads that the bikers love to ride on. So we head out to the school, and the school was locked up, as modern schools are, and we really couldn't go in. But from the fence, the guys described what they remembered. You've seen the video, haven't you?
I have. I've got the clip here if you don't mind me playing it.
Yeah, sure.
Right, so this is the intro part here. Whoops, not that one. We want this one. It doesn't want to do it. Buttons aren't working. We'll go like that. Yeah, that one. There we go. When it wants to play.
Yeah. Yeah, the traffic noise was pretty wild.
No, Carl's 2 years older than me.
Yeah, but our little school was only, I think there was 30 kids
About 30 in the whole
in the
school.
whole school. So we had one room, one teacher.
Yeah.
So we sort of, same classes.
And what year did the event happen?
I think 73.
That's about right.
About a year before the flood.
Yeah.
The big 74 flood.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you copped it here too?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was in
Yeah.
Brisbane then, the big 74 flood.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
yeah,
a
we
big
copped
one.
it bad up in Main Arm.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you think that a lot of the schools saw it? Like,
I think more than has let on.
Yeah.
And I was just talking
I
to
think
somebody
most of the schools saw it.
over in
most
the
of the
park
schools saw it.
that had heard I was just talking to someone in the park that was talking to me about the sighting
Wow.
in Main Arm and that they were there, and that was Simon. And I'm like,
Was that
which
just this
Simon
morning?
is this? Yeah, this morning.
This morning.
This
Wow.
morning, just then.
There's only two big ones. There's the one in Zimbabwe and there's our one at Westall
In
in
Melbourne.
1966.
Yeah.
Down in Melbourne, outside of Melbourne, but like a suburb of Melbourne.
Yeah.
But this is significant,
Mm.
People are
Yeah.
going to be very interested in this.
Well, the main thing about it is that it was never reported.
Yeah.
It
we-
became
you know,
very hush-hush. It was just,
And there was no
as if it
phones
didn't
and
happen.
stuff back then. There was no mobile phones, so there was no recording of it.
So, to your knowledge, there was no newspaper reports.
nothing was said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also remembering that all the teachers and parents were inside the building It was the kids that were outside.
Yeah.
So they probably spoke to the kids. The kids probably spoke to them and went, "Nah, that's not true. That didn't
Your
happen."
mum saw it.
My mum saw it. Yeah, she saw it take off.
The old intro there.
Yeah, that's just my intro there.
But yeah, that's incredible. Is that Mount Warning that was in the background there?
No, it's Chincogan. It looks like Mount Warning, but it's more. Oh no, wait a minute. Am I getting mixed up? No, I think Chincogan's down at Mullumbimby. That's a mountain behind Yukai that's really cool. It's very sort of pyramid looking.
Yeah, it looked cool because I'm like, it almost looked like Mount Warning, but I'm pretty sure they're a bit further away from Mount Warning. It's a bit more
Yeah,
further out.
Mount Warning's on the way out to Yukai. There's the turn off, and you can drive up to the base of the mountain. And
Yep.
they're actually about to open it up again. You haven't been able to walk on it for a few years.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's all this sort of secret men's business or something.
Yeah, right.
But the local Aboriginal people have been saying we didn't say to close it, and it's apparently they're saying there's no reason it has to be closed. Open it up.
Fair enough.
It's in a city.
political-
White fellas like, oh yes, we must be careful of offending the rainbow serpent or something, and the real Aboriginal people are like, yeah, you got like a fairy tale version of our thing, That's how us, out here we get on fine with everybody, and anyway, so that's on the way, and that the country's like mostly dirt roads that we followed. You can get there on the main highway, but in the clip you can see we go on this long winding dirt road, which is sort of cool, and it's part of the reason why this incredible encounter wasn't known about, because the place is so isolated, and one has to assume that the adults just went, "No, this is not getting talked about. We don't want the press coming here. We don't want people getting involved from outside." And it was a very close-knit sort of countercultural type community, and they probably didn't want the man turning up,
Yeah. What am I doing? Sorry, I'm just trying to put these maps up here. So let's just get this map up here so people get an idea where this place actually is. So get rid of that one there. So here's up in Maine here. Is my cursor on there? No, my cursor's not coming up, is it? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
I think the school. Where was the school from here? That's a bit. Is that right? That's up in Maine there. Yeah, that's up in Maine. That's
Upper
Maine.
Maine,
That's Maine.
yeah.
Sorry, up
Yeah.
Maine. Where'd that go? Here it is up here.
So it's this whole area is an extinct volcano from millions of years ago, and
Yeah.
they call it the caldera. It's like a round crater that's still left, and that's where all our mountains are, volcanic. But they're not active, but they're sort of volcanic rock. And
Yeah.
all our headlands out into the sea are from lava flows back then. So all these valleys come from where the lava's flowed and the grounds.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful area because I grew up on the Gold Coast there, and we used to go down, staying at Mebane State Forest there back in the day.
Oh yeah,
Which is
right.
a bit further out past Mount Warning there, and beautiful place. Very rugged terrain there, but still a beautiful forest. It was like sort of tropical in a sense, but forest tropical sort of area.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of very full-on rainforest out the back here, out towards Kyogle especially, is major rainforests, subtropical. But the Mebane Forest, I was actually the only time I've ever been a tree feller. I worked with this gentleman who he was one of the original hippies who moved out in 1972 to the Aquarius Festival in Nimbin, and then he stayed there, built a little house. And 1979, I actually lived only for about a month or two with him. That was my only sort of hippie time, but I was, a Nimbin local for a very short period. But we used to go out and just fell small trees and drag them out of the forest. In Mebane Forest there, legally, but it was. He went on to start a business all about trees and reforesting and replanting trees.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so it's that sort of place. It's a Nimbinish type of place, main arm, but not it's not like a town like that. It's more just a settlement with a post office and a few shops, but people all around and all sort of nice laid back people. So I think that this story's going to grow. I really hope that more people will come forward. I'm not at all profiting from this. I just wanted to give my small platform to my friend and Shana and Carl, and talk to people like yourself with a bigger platform who can just tell people about it. Because when I posted my video on the Westall Facebook group and some other places, people all just jumped in assuming it was Westall and going, oh yeah, we've heard all about this, and oh, that was fake, and all the trolls come in, yeah, this is all bull and blah blah blah. And I'm like, hello, why don't you watch it? It's not about Westall. This is an
Completely missed it.
unknown one. Yeah, they're just people being people. But once people clicked, then there was more interest from the serious thinkers, and I just wanted the Westall folks who are all about the same age as us to know about it, because I feel that maybe there's some connection. Why do they visit schools?
Yeah.
Because these kids literally were sort of hypnotized by the thing. That's what Shana and Carl say, that they're in the playground, they're on the jungle gym, which I don't know if non-Aussies know what that is, but the metal climbing frame that we all climbed all over and hung off upside down, and different Australian play equipment. The kids were all out there. It was a Christmas party. The adults were in drinking eggnog and beer and being adults, and this flying saucer, right, like a real classic flying saucer by the description, just came down on the other side of this little fence across from where all the kids were playing, and the kids just ran across to the fence and stood there staring at it. So the story is that they can't remember what happened then. It just seemed everyone was just there looking at it for a long time. The first impression I got was that it was for half an hour, which I thought was extraordinary. I thought, well, what was going on in that half an hour? But then, apparently I got my wires crossed, and it was only maybe a minute, maybe a little bit more. But this is where we want other people to come forward, because, it's 50 years ago. A lot of time, and it often shocks me, my recollection of stuff and somebody else's recollection from even in the things in the 80s. It's like, really? That's what you think happened? And one of my habits in life is when extraordinary things happen, I write them down straight away.
Yep.
And I write down everything I can, because I know it's worth its weight in gold when you go back. Like my memory of the flying saucer sort of event when I was a kid, and the memory of meeting that beautiful woman in 78, I did write that down in the 90s. I sort of wrote accounts, because even then, 20 years later, I was thinking, yeah, this is going to fade as I get older, and I better write it now so that I just don't think, oh, that was just some fantasy I had or a dream. While I was still only 30 something, I thought I'd better write this down. So, yeah, but they don't recall what happened, but I suspect maybe some of the kids were taken on board, or that sort of thing usually happens, some kind of examination, but maybe not. The fact that the kids all stood there and didn't sort of run in and get the adults is odd, which makes me think there was a type of telepathic control going on. Shana eventually broke away, and she's a very strong-minded person. I can imagine her being the kid that could break from the hold. She ran in. Her mother must have been closer, grabbed her mum, insisted that she came out. Her mother came out just in time to see it lift up and fly off at a great rate. Unfortunately, her mum's now in her late 80s, and Shana told me she doesn't really remember. She remembers her mum maybe 10, 15 years ago saying she remembered, but now she's starting to be like, oh no, I don't really remember.
Yeah, age is kicking in, dementia possibly, and yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just my mum was the same at that age. She started to, still have a good conversation with her, but things were starting to, get unlinked in the mind, in the memory.
Yep.
But yeah, so the really cool thing about this one is that there was not only a landing site, but a sort of a slight platform, as if it had been made. And Shana talks about that in my interview, where she says she took a dad there, and a dad saw it, but unfortunately he's passed away too, so we haven't got his testimony. But he said, wow, like, you were right. There's definitely something's been using this as a sort of a base, and it's an area near the school that I think it's now a camping ground, but it used to be just, I think it was Macca's place, she called it, some old Scottish guy, a guy with a Scottish name. This circular, hard-packed area where this thing was using as a bit of a base, which is pretty far out. It fascinates me. What is all this really about? Are these man-made machines? Are there people in there? Are they automatic? Are there, these extraterrestrial biological entities? Are the machines conscious in an AI sort of way?
Mm.
Nothing's cut and dried for us who are out of the loop. We're just out here, fascinated people going, yeah, I want to know about this.
That's the weird, the worst part of it too. Like, we want to know answers there, but we're never gonna get the truth. Not in the degrees of, like, with the research that you're doing right now, trying to find answers for what happened in the school here, and we're not gonna find out. That we know something happened, but we don't know the full reality behind it.
I agree that human officials are unlikely to tell ordinary plebs like us the full truth unless they've vetted it and manipulated it to their ends. It's the same as religion. I mean, religions are always based on other people's real spiritual experience, but then the non-experiences tune it and shape it into a narrative that they can control. They conveniently leave out stuff that's, difficult to control or gives people too much freedom. They construct these religions to, usually they're state religions, and once you have a state religion, it's backed by the power of the state, and when they go, all religions have gone through their really nasty periods where they do really nasty things to people who don't agree.
Yeah.
And then they have their nicer periods where they're not so inhuman, but they're always constructed from something that's actually real. And the store I put is on when real people like Shana and Carl tell me something, I believe them.
Yep.
I'm critical, but I'm not skeptical. I don't just dismiss things. I go, well, this is your experience. I don't know I've had far out experiences that people can easily say, "Nah, Dave, you're just fantasizing." But I say, well, I absolutely know it happened, but it's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. But I do listen to people and go, yeah, I'll accept your story.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can just tell that somebody's not quite mentally sound, having issues, maybe a little bit schizophrenic or something. You get these wild, especially in Ancient Aliens, man. There's the stuff people write to me sometimes. I'm going, oh wow, they just give me these elaborate constructions of where we all come from. Some of us came from that constellation, and they're called this, and they wear this sort of hairstyle, and these people over here, and this is their plan, and it's like, yeah, I'm open-minded, but there's a point where I go, oh, this is too much information, like really, this is hard to swallow.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because, like, over the years, I've had the same thing. People coming forward with their thing, like they know this is the deal, and it's like, well, hang on, but you got all these other people saying different things over here. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but you're not really um, collaborating with what other people are trying to, sort of give information on. Like, there's usually
Yeah,
a truth to something. There's always a truth to something there, and whether or not they've warped to their own sort of ways, or they're adding things to it. Like as I said, like that people are
yeah,
encountering things and they've experienced things, all around the world here. So there is a massive truth to this. But some people just, yeah, like as you're saying, like whether it is their own mentality sort of taking over, or psychological issues. It's hard to sort of get a grasp on if they are real, or if they're full quid.
yeah. It requires maturity and experience with human nature, and a lot of things are involved in a field this far out. And the skeptics are right to be skeptical of people who they perceive them. The more cynical skeptic always thinks, oh, what's in it for you, mate? Why are you telling this story? Are you trying to become famous because of this? Are you trying to spin up a lucrative career for yourself
Mm,
doing this? And I understand that too. Like, as you mentioned before, some people, like, I could have told you, yeah, I met this beautiful green-eyed girl, and then yeah, I went down and saw her, and we had this weekend of lovemaking on the planet Venus at her flat there, and then she brought me back, and I've got these implants, and these things come out of my head sometimes, and we communicate. You know what I mean? I could have just spun it into a ridiculous thing, or written a whole novel about it, or whatever, but that's just not my trip. If I'm going to be a weirdo, I want to be an honest weirdo. I don't want to make stuff up. So I can guarantee if I tell you something happened, I really believe it happened,
yeah.
and I try to not invent stuff. I just go by what I can recall, and yeah, being a sort of like a private detective, I think, is what we do. Like, we interview people. The skill of making people feel comfortable of listening to them, of not feeding them stuff, not leading them so that. Do you think that it could have looked like this? That's leading the witness. What's
Mm,
putting ideas in their head. You've got to be careful to just let them tell you rather than suggesting, and then even unconsciously people will follow your lead.
yeah. But that's what makes it
Yeah.
difficult in this sort of field too, though. 'Cause, like, people will experience something, um, something that they don't understand or they know, like, especially like when you're watching the sky or something like that. And just because they don't understand it, they get all euphoric and think, "Oh, wow, amazing. I just seen something absolutely incredible. I don't know what it is." And then, such as myself, like, they come towards me and you go, "Hey, look, sorry, this is like the space station or it was a satellite or something, something that was actually explainable." And like, "No, no, no, I felt it." Like, "No, I felt some sort of connection to it." I was like, "But it's." I'm not trying to say you're crazy, but a lot of people are getting things in their head. They're going because it's exciting to them, so they think there's a connection to it, and then that's where it sort of gets difficult because they're thinking they're having this amazing encounter. It's like, which is great, you have experiencing something new, but there's something psychological that happens in this UFO community where people just become, I don't know, I don't want to be rude about it, but they become stupid in the sense where they believe absolutely everything is a UFO. And it's like, what happened to logic? Where'd our understanding of, we've grown up watching satellites all our lives these days. And yet we
Yeah.
still want to call everything orbs and UFOs these days. And people are now monetizing off this and trying to say these are UFOs flying over every day, and it's like, well, no, we've got the technology there. There's infrared cameras there capturing things in the sky, and but it's doing a massive discredit to the people who actually have had a genuine encounter. People have actually seen physical crafts where they can actually describe the shapes. These are the
Mm.
people that we need to be talking to. These are the
Yeah,
legit
people
people.
have been right up close and inside, and do you
Yeah.
know that is it Pensacola? There's this famous story of these two guys in the States, a young guy about 19 and this older guy about 40 who'd been through the Korean War. He's like a veteran infantry soldier who saw a lot of terrible things, been in battle a number of times. And they were just two country boys working in a hard job, and they both liked fishing, and they knew each other through their families. So they were sitting down beside this river off the track a bit where particular fish had been biting. And this is one of my favorite stories. Somewhere I bought the book. I haven't seen it for ages, but it's got, I'm sure the name starts with P. It's like Pensacola or Penquala, one of those American, I guess, Native American original words. But they see this thing flying around, like doing a circuit, and it's sort of silvery with blue lights. And then it comes down right near them. And it's just the wildest thing. And then this door opens at the back, and these robot things float out, and they got like pointy noses and arms, but they're like floating. And these two guys just freeze in absolute, terror and horror. Like, they just can't understand what they're seeing, and they get taken on board it and examined, and they remember this stuff and being sort of pinned up on the wall and all these weird things coming around them, and then they get put out again. And the younger guy blacks out, and the older guy's just a tough sort of character because he's been through a lot of hell, and he manages to keep it together, but they're both totally freaked. And so they decide to go to the sheriff's office. They tell the sheriff, and the sheriff's guys put them in a room and secretly tape them and listen to them. The two guys are in there thinking they're alone and just going, "Oh, I'm so terrified, man. I don't know what to do. I'm out of my mind. I can't believe what's happened." And have you heard of that one?
Might be a different story, but it sounds kind of familiar. Not the description of these robot things there, but it does sound familiar with the two guys going into in the room there.
There's that other story. I hate this when I get blanks. Very
I know
famous,
the feeling.
Travis Walton.
Yes.
Is it
Yep.
the Travis Walton case is very famous, and I believe those guys. And it was the same sort of deal where the local sheriffs and whatever thought they were all lying and they'd killed
I
him.
think that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but this was the same. They got a highly reputable lie detector operator to come down from a bigger town, and these guys put themselves through that, and they couldn't find any way they were lying, but they both sort of really flipped out for a while afterwards. And stories like that, they're the ones that make me go, that's real. That like whatever, how weird that is, but that's real. Just the
Yeah.
way they guys react, the natural way they tell the story. It's the same as Shana and Carl. There was just no deception in them. They got no reason to come up with a story like this. So,
Yeah.
they were saying on the video, we're just telling this because it happened and we want people to know about it. And the fact that we've got the Zimbabwe case, Westall, and we got that famous one up in New Guinea. Remember Father Gill?
Oh, yeah, I remember
There's
something
that-
about this. Yes.
Yeah, 1958, I think, which is like 59 when I was born, a long time ago. This craft came and sort of hovered above this sort of a mission plantation place, and there was like heaps of Papua New Guinea people there who testified later that it was real, and then there was people standing on the top of this thing and they were waving at them and they were waving back, and
That's
you
right.
know and this is a Church of England minister, and he put in a formal report and it got investigated, and yeah, that's what keeps me going is these sort of things. Around about the same time that this event occurred in Acacia Ridge, 1965. I think it was like 27th of May, either a couple of days before or a couple of days after, up at a place called Eaton Ridge, which is near, I think it's Mackay. It's not Maryborough. I think it's Mackay. Place called Eaton Ridge, a pub. The publican and two of his mates were having a late night drink. They said they hadn't had many drinks. The publican was a commercial pilot, so he'd done like over 500 hours. He'd probably done thousands of hours of flying. And this craft just appeared from down the creek bed and hovered there just above the trees, with all these lights above it and silent, and was there for like half an hour. And one of the guys went and got his 303 and out of his truck, and he was going to fire at it. And the publican, I think it was Ray Tilley or Tilsey, he said, no, don't shoot at it. You don't know what it's got. Might have a death ray and we'll all be just skeletons. But he, basically the police came and were joking about it at first, and then they went down there and they found these heavy marks in the ground where the thing had landed, and it was a sort of a ring, and there was bits of trees knocked off, and it's the same with the one that I might have been part of in Acacia Ridge. There was a saucer ring. There was a mark there for years.
Les Tilly. Les
yeah.
Tilly, is that?
It could be. I've got all the data in my, iPad somewhere. But was it Eaton Ridge? ETON?
I dare say so. Wayne's there in the chat there helping us out with that one there. So
Oh, good one. Yeah, so it was 1965. It was definitely the same week that this thing happened to the Toonan mother and daughter at Acacia Ridge. And it was within that same week period that there was this, I think it was ANA, one of the, there was TAA and ANA, our commercial domestic airlines. One of them was turned back. I think it was a prop job, with propellers, but probably 30 people on board got turned back on the way out to Bougainville because there was this orb tracking them, sitting off the wing, and everyone saw it. People took photographs of it. So it was that very same week, and that's what the Toonans saw, was a great orange orb, which then seemed to morph into a more like a flying source of lights. I don't remember is it Tilly? Did you find his name? I don't.
Les Tilly. I was look up myself actually.
The Eaton Ridge. It's in the newspaper. It said something like, "A thing makes its mark." But yeah, that I don't remember that being described as being an orange ball, but it definitely was very similar to what the Toonans in Acacia Ridge reported as a craft that had lights all around. And in there, I'm hopefully going to get to interview Lainey Toonan. When I watched Disclosure Day, you know, the part where the little girl and the little boy are on the, you know, the benches inside the alien craft, and those weird things are coming down and examining their minds, I guess. I got quite emotional watching that. I don't know why exactly. I couldn't. Maybe it was just because it was well done, but I felt like I've always felt like me and this lady might have been two little kids on that craft at the same time. But I definitely think she was. I only surmise what happened to me.
No, I can't find anything on the Les Tilly or anything in regards to the Mackay encounter. Because yeah, Eaton Ranges there, yeah, is off just out west of Mackay there.
It is Mackay, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I can
So
look
just
it up.
going back on the the upper main public encounter, the school encounter there. So bring
Yeah.
us back up. Did you what was the name? Sorry, Carla? Was it Car?
Shana, it's
Shana.
Chantel.
Shana.
Yeah, Chana.
Did you say
Or
roughly
Chantel.
where this encounter sort of happened? I don't know if you can see my cursor there at all, but
Well, it's at the primary school.
so this is the primary school.
And
This is where you guys were at the front here talking, and
yeah,
so
that
that
looks
long
like
driveway.
it. It's pretty tiny on my screen, but it looks like, yeah. The original sort of road into the schools there, things have changed a bit, of course, but where the craft hovered was like a playing field, and now there's sort of more trees and things there, still a playing field. But so it's, see that, if you could, you go in a bit further.
Yep.
Keep going.
So this
Yeah,
is the
so
front car park here.
Right. Yeah, so see that it looks like a little road in front of that going down to like a house.
Yeah, the big
That's the,
footpath and the house down here.
yeah, so see there's a house at the end of the road. That's
Yep.
where the headmaster used to live, and where the school is back a bit, that's, you know, that's still the school. So the encounter happened just a bit more back on that road towards the gate. See where there's that clump of trees?
This one here.
Yeah, but just to your right a little bit. That one, yeah, that round there. That was just grass, and the object hovered there just off the ground. There was a one light underneath it. It was a dark metallic aluminium, sort of brushed aluminium look. Might have been sort of shinier on the top. Silent. Shana or Carl never said anything about, you know, effects of radiation, like as if they had any sunburn afterwards, or, you know, felt sick or anything like that.
Yeah, okay, no radiation effects or anything like that.
Yeah. But it definitely was a craft that came down and was there. So why that did that, I don't know. But why did they go to the other schools? Something attracts them to young people. And my personal theory is that they are interested in certain children that are advanced. I mean, if you want to get really out there, you could say that some of us are hybrids from way back and others aren't. And some, people with telepathic abilities or psychic abilities or, unusual abilities that could be a natural human thing, because I do think it's natural in animals and other creatures, but there's also a good possibility that we've been hybridized for thousands of years and they just keep tabs on the family lines and how things are going. I sort of do have to say, it seems like, when they tag penguins and they let them out and let them just get eaten by stuff and don't intervene while they're watching it, I think it's similar. If they really wanted to help us, they'd just turn up, go, righto, game's over. This is what the galaxy's about. This is the tech. You guys need to stop doing this, this, and this, and we'll teach you. And they could do that. Surely they could do that and stop all our ridiculous hate and politics and religions and wars, etc. But they don't. So you have to assume that it's sort of an experiment.
Yeah. That's been one of my biggest questions, Day Dot, when I have guests on here, who claiming that there's, they can talk to these beings or they can, like they've got some sort of involvement and such like. It's like, well, why didn't they go and get in contact with us? Well, they have been in contact with us, but why haven't they interfered sooner? Like, prior to the World War Ones, World War Two, part where
Oh.
we're nearly blowing the crap out of each other. They should have gone and go, hey, whoa, just hold up a minute. Like, you needed to stop this sort of nonsense because it's not getting you anywhere. Why aren't they intervening?
I have to throw in, what would you call this? Not a spanner into the works, but people often say this, why does God allow suffering? And it's a very valid question, especially when it's happening to you.
Yeah.
You just go, stop it. What are you doing this to me for? But I've always been attracted to the philosophies and religions of the East, more the philosophies, but there's a common factor, which is the knowledge of endless reincarnations, the knowledge of there's definitely no end, just dying. That's just this body dies, and then, you're on to the next adventure. You come back into another form, maybe connected to who you were, maybe in a whole different lineage, maybe even as a creature, a different creature. But that, see, the standard Christian, Islamic, Judaic view has always been, there's one life. You either go to the good place or the bad place. End of story. You get judged. Here's our book of rules.
Yeah.
Try not to piss God off because God's really angry at you for some bizarre reason, even though it made you. Whereas in the East, there's none of that. So in the West, and I include the Middle East, we always had this obsession with, this final battle. The Vikings have Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. Armageddon in the Old Testament, the final battle, the rapture, the end times, the mark of the beast, all that stuff. It's very Western. But in the East, the whole trip is like, oh no, man, it just relax. It just keeps going forever, And when I got into all of that, and I've been into all, interested in those philosophies since I was a teenager, it just changed the way you view life. And like, one of the reasons the Japanese was such a fearsome foe in the Second World War is because deep down, everyone's afraid to die, especially painfully and horribly, but deep down, they all knew that it's not the end. And, same as, as they call them, Islamists, whatever, people who blow themselves up, they sincerely believe that they're, right with their God and
Mm.
everything's going to be cool. But in the East, it's more like it's just a given that you will be back, and so what's there to fear? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like life makes a lot more sense if it all gets worked out. If it's just one shot, how can that be fair? Everyone has completely different set of cards when they're born.
Yeah.
And I've always had, being a very a strong male, a sort of male that will fight and very into macho things and whatever. I try to be gentle, but women often say to me, I don't understand this, that, and the other. It's like, well, it's because you're a woman,
Yeah.
You can't understand me. My mother used to say that to me, and I'd say, Mum, you just don't. You're not a bloke. You're not a man like me, and I'm not you. And so I do try to put myself in your head, imagine what it's like to be a lady, but it's really hard. The same, it's really hard for you to understand what it's like to be me. And she'd say, why don't you calm down? Why do you get so angry? And I'm going, it's just the way we're wired.
Mm.
We're wired for battle. We're wired to fight pack of wolves that turns up to try and dig our tribe out, our family out of our frozen cave or something. Fight a bear, fight a horde of other barbarians that turn up to do despicable things to us. To have that sort of ability to fight back, you can't be docile, and you can't be little, and you can't be scared. You've got to be ferocious like them, and that's not easily bred out of people. And that's one of the problems we have in our world, is that males do cause a lot of trouble because we are still primed for the old days.
Yeah.
But it's maybe that's part of why they're interested in us too, because we're still sort of barbarians. We haven't been out of the jungle for that long, and a lot of our behaviour still, we'd fit right into the old days.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long to put people back into that type of dog eat dog world. Anyway, but so get back to life after death, and that I think that's a big part of the understanding of what this is about. And I do think from my Norse studies that these beings are also somehow between life and death in a way. Like they are somewhat interdimensional. They can move between what we think of as the mortal world and a higher world, and who knows what else is going on. But I was going to tell you about that today if we had the time, about
Yeah, we've got a bit of time.
some of the Norse stuff I've found. Did you want to ask me anything else about Upper Main Arm?
I was gonna no, not so much now about Upper Main. I think that's pretty much all we can do really, because well, as far as we can go, because there's
Yeah.
not really much more else to go on by, except for you got 2 witnesses there, unless other people want to come forward there. So which we need to try and encourage that. Obviously, you got your Viking Superpowers channel there for people to go and check it out, and I'll make sure to put the link in the description here if I haven't already. I don't think I have, but I'll definitely add it there so people can go and check that out. But obviously, if people have information, I obviously want to encourage them to come to you there with any information, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's, I don't want to push it. Like, I've left it up to Shana and Carl if they want to get amongst the locals. I tried to post this on their Facebook group. It was the 100th anniversary of the school, but it was, how admins just block you. Like,
Yeah, I remember you telling me this. Yes.
they didn't block me, but the post is just sitting there waiting for approval, which means
Yeah.
not getting approved. And so somebody's decided to be the gatekeeper to protect them from some insane people claiming something came, or they all know it's true and they don't want it out of the bag, So
Yeah.
that's their business. I'm not here to push anything, but if people want to contact me or Shana, we'd like to have a little get together and see if we can get permission from the school to just come onto the grounds with their permission and look at where it was, and film a bit of testimony with people. That would be really cool.
Absolutely. Did you try and I know you said you tried to contact with the school, their Facebook page, but what about the local community pages? Did you try and post there at all?
Well, this was a community page. I
Oh, okay.
haven't talked to the school at all. I'm going to get together with Shana again soon and just discuss what to do. I mean, she's put her story out there. If nobody else wants to talk about it, well, in the end, what can you do?
Mm.
The people from Westall are very brave, being prepared to come forward, and I guess they sort of helped each other. Once a few were doing it, others thought, yeah, well, okay. And
Yeah.
when that wonderful man, that school teacher who they threatened, said, we'll, the Air Force and some other spook types told him they'd paint him as a drunk and he'd be end of his teaching career if he talked about it. And he finally came forward. He actually did come forward back then. There's a George Stevenson.
Why does that name sound familiar?
He's a great guy. He wrote this fantastic book about Frederick Valentich and new evidence that came forward of what happened around that case, the disappearance of Frederick in his plane in
You're
1978.
not referring to George Simpson?
What did I say? Did I say Stevenson?
Stevenson, yeah, Simons or something.
I think I said Stevenson, George, but is it Simpson? Yeah.
Simpson, yeah, George Simpson.
Sorry, George. Because I'm using my phone, I can't look it up. I don't always remember things.
That's all right. And then he started talking about the
Like
Valentich
second
case. Like, hang
names.
on, that's George Simpson.
Yeah, he wrote a book, didn't he? About
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
Frederick. Yeah, it's a great book, and yeah, he's been supportive about this, but yeah, we'll definitely let you know if more information comes forward. Then I'll be definitely interviewing some people, and in the end, it's just for those who are interested, isn't it? Like, I don't think it's going to change the world,
no,
but it's just another little block that says to your brain, this seems to be real. And if
yeah.
that's real, then what else is real?
Well, it's more so the fact that there's like, as you said before, like it could have been very well, another school landing that's been lost to the history. And how many others could there have been
That's
around
it.
the world previous to that? That's. And you said, like, why is there a thing about schools? Why are they landing at schools and such? Like, which could just add more to the mystery of questioning of why is there an interest that, are they trying to get to young minds? There's so many questions that could correlate around this question if these with these encounters.
Yeah, I think it also personally helps you to realize that you could be part of a great mysterious plan that's going on. And
Mm.
it's not the place to talk about it now because it'd be too long-winded, but I had a near-death experience, and then first 2 years after that, I really didn't know whether I was the same guy who died and come back. I just had the most outrageous experiences that affected other people, and this power sort of came out of me. And one of the highest experiences where I literally saw, I had a vision. I was in a church, and the minister said, it was a sort of real holy roller sort of thing. And the minister said, I feel like the Lord wants to give somebody a vision here tonight. And I remember thinking, it's not going to be me, because I'd spent the whole day thinking about all the pretty girls that were in the church, and how
As you
much
do.
I wanted to get a wife, because I was sort of trying my best to be celibate. Well, I was doing it. This sort of a Christian revival period I went through after the near-death experience, but I was the one that God was going to give a vision to, and it just hit me kapow. And to sum it up, I think I saw a vision of the craft that had something to do with my near-death experience. And I got to tell this story sometime. I'm sort of still putting it together, but I feel like they have more to do with us than we realize.
Mm.
And an interaction with them can explain a lot of spookier things that happen to us that don't quite make sense. But when you realize you're not alone, and there's some kind of higher intellect going on in our world that's pushing us in certain directions, opening us up to our human abilities. I think this is a very exciting time, actually. I think we're always in danger of being shoved back into a dark ages where some authoritarian religion or group goes, right, this is the way it is, no stepping outside the boundaries or else,
Mm.
At the moment, we're still really free and we're able to question everything. So we need to really get at it because, sometimes it's only a window where you can do that, and then the oppressors close everything down again.
Yeah. That's what I sort of liked about, this new generation of people now are coming out, and since COVID, people have nearly started really questioning government suppression and stuff like that, their sense of control and that, which I think since that, people have become a lot more open-minded and less, conditioned to, just don't question anything. Just live your life. But still, people are still doing it, but there's a lot more people who are a lot more aware that there is a lot more behind the works of the governments these days, to
Yeah.
what we used, back in the day. Like everyone just went to work, didn't question anything. Whatever the news said, that was it. Whereas now,
I,
I suppose the internet helps a lot with that too. Conspiracy theories were actually true, or there's a lot of truth behind them. Such like that. And this is where people are going to be questioning now. With the UFO relation, with the release of UFO files and such like that. Even though it hasn't got as much attention as I thought it would with these UFO files getting released, but back in 2017, when the US government said, yeah, UFOs are real, still no one cared, no one gave a crap. But you think that'd be a big thing there, but at the moment, I
well,
think
we
everyone's
weren't told that they gave a crap. The
yeah,
media does a good job at suppressing information
they
when
do.
they. But I'll tell you something. As an old geezer, I really admire your generation. Like I don't get around going, "Oh, young people these days, they're all crazy." I think young people now are really cool, and you've got your idiots. Same as there's plenty of idiots my age,
Absolutely.
but I have great conversations with guys and girls who are in their 20s, 30s, and often they teach me things, and I love that. They got fresh minds, free from a lot of the conditioning that I had to go through in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
stuff that you guys don't even know about, that religion really was pumped into us, and obedience, and and then we rebelled in the counterculture, but a lot of that was sort of conditioning as well. A lot of people my age now are really fixed in certain beliefs that they got from the 60s and 70s, which are not necessarily the right beliefs. But I meet young people all the time who are really refreshing to me, and I love the way they think, and they sort of give me clues as to how to do things better, especially with technology, YouTube maximizing things. But yeah,
No, it's
so
definitely some good things out there at the moment. Like, we are definitely developing into a better generation. Some people probably argue it, but because we're definitely not as I suppose the younger people these days aren't as driven as what we used to. What was the older generation used to be with work wise. I think we're a little bit lazier in that sort of sense there, but knowledge wise and the way, like, as you said, we're a lot more less conditioned, which allows the younger generation today to go and really broaden their perspectives on the world, which is great.
Yeah. Well, if what Elon Musk and many other commentators at the top end say, robots and AI are going to be doing most of the jobs, and some people see that as with shock horror, like, oh my God, but I need to go and work 8 hours a day. And, it's like, no, I don't. I got more than enough to keep me amused without
Yeah.
having to go and stack shelves in Coles or, work for somebody else. I really love, I'm sort of officially retired, but I'm not really. I'm never going to retire. But I love the fact that I can just spend my day reading, Old Norse literature and books about UFOs and talking to people like you and, drawing pictures and practicing kung fu and doing all the things that I love and trying to develop as a person,
Mm.
So I
Well,
just
that's the
want to say,
idea, though, isn't it? Like, we're supposed to be enjoying our life in the time that we've got here. Like, but we're, back in the day, that was our life. Go to work, come home. But whereas these days, people don't really want to work; they want to enjoy their life. But unfortunately, we still need to go and work to go and live. So, like, I love the phrase there, like, work to live, not live to work.
yeah. Well, that's the
I think
big
that's
thing
changing
that's
all the time.
changed. It's just education led to people, becoming aware more of what was really going on, and you start to see that if you don't have money, you get used. People. I'm no commo or socialist really, but I certainly believe in people being treated right. And I used to always hate being paid $12 an hour, and I knew people employing me were making $200 an hour out of my work.
Yeah,
That's the sort of stuff that gets up my nose, and that drives most people to become entrepreneurial and think, well, I want to be the guy making the $200 an hour. Which I've moved away from work for people, and I do make decent money when I work as an artist, and with what I'm doing, it's made me a little bit of income, but I expect us to make a lot more, and I have no shame about that. I believe money's a good thing. Money
mm,
allows you to do cool stuff, to explore, to travel, to make things, and actually be able to help people too.
yeah,
But, I yeah. So you want to talk about the Viking stuff?
absolutely. Let's go dive into that. We've got a little bit of extra time there, so yeah, let's go dive into that. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Well,
people are very familiar with the Nordics and the Vikings there, and like, where did it come into the history of Viking culture that with the Nordic, I say we'll go um, Nordic beings, like where did that sort of come into it with Viking culture?
well, not to get too academic about it, but most of the knowledge we have of the beliefs of the people in the Viking Age comes from books that were written a couple of hundred years after the official end of the Viking Age. Actually, like the Viking Age is a bit of an old designation. Of course, postmodernists being postmodernists, they're starting to attack it now and try to change the terms. But essentially, the Viking Age was from the first raids on England in the 780s through to about 1100 AD. It was always the Battle of Hastings, which was 1066, the defeat of the Norwegian King Harald Hardrada in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. He was considered the last of the Viking kings, and the Christianization of the North. I guess this is the old thinking. It's like, right, when they became Christians, that's when they stopped being horrible barbarians and acceptable because they were within the Holy Mother Church. They were within the fold, but the Icelanders were very isolated people, and it was one main Icelander, Snorri Sturluson, who managed to not only learn enormous amounts and research enormously into the stories of the people called the Aesir, the gods they usually call them in English, but I like the word Aesir because it takes away from that mythical sense of supernatural beings that live in a heaven that's not really part of our reality. It's some spiritual place. He wrote in 1220 this book's called the Snorra Edda. In English we usually call it the Prose Edda. This is all in Old Norse, which is also called Old Icelandic, and it's just the most outrageous collection of tales about not only the doings of these gods, these Aesir, and the men are called Aus. An individual is called an Aus, and a female goddess is called Ausinjur. But this is literally the story of two humans, one a wizard king of Sweden called Gylfi, and the other one a Jotun from Denmark. And a Jotun is usually translated as a giant or a risi. These are Norse words for something they're not quite sure of. I don't really like the word giant because for us it always sounds like, Jack and the Beanstalk sort of level giant. But I think the Jotun, these giants, are actually us, and maybe it's referring to sort of Neanderthal people crossed with Cro-Magnon, Homo sapien. I think that they were pretty much just standard humans, but many thousands of years ago, and who had powers, paranormal powers, which is a huge part of what these stories are about. Also, is this sort of a very matter-of-fact understanding that humans and these Aesir and these Jotun had strange powers, abilities to see the future, abilities to affect other people in all sorts of strange ways, to change the wind, to make the rain come, to affect storms. It's a whole subject in itself, and it's part of my fascination. But anyway, these two guys, Gylfi, the Wizard King of Sweden, and Aegir, he's like a king of northern Denmark, Jutland. They'd both get sort of alien abducted to Asgard, and Asgard's the home of these Aesir gods, and it was down in Anatolia, down in the area of modern Turkey. And in my book, Viking Superpowers, this is it with lots of bits of paper stuck in it because I'm always going through it and thinking about it. This is literally in this book. It says that these people who could fly, the Aesir, these high-tech, beautiful, incredible people, took these two guys and fed them this whole huge story about what was going on, about all the doings of Thor and Odin and Loki and Balder and all these different characters. And what we end up with is a story that's both sort of mythical, like, much larger than life, and seems to be a like have a spiritual meaning, and then an incredibly pragmatically real story where it seems like these are flesh and blood beings. They just can live for a really, really long time because they've got a therapy created by this one of the women called Ithun, who seems to be like the great medical technician biologist, and she gives them this therapy every day. These so-called apples. It just sort of means something round, like a ball. And there's a story in there that when they're deprived of these things, they rapidly become really old and painful and grey-headed and grumpy. So it's like that. They just start reverting to their actual age really quick, which is, that story's been told in other places in movies and things, but this is, 1,000 years old stories is talking about that, and then they get the apples back, they get Ithun back, and next thing they're young again. So that's where the stories come from. This book and another book up here called Simon de Edda, which is, this was published in 1270, but it's a collection of the really old poems. And Norse poetry was elaborate, and the way it was created makes it very hard to sort of make it up and fake it or twist it or change it.
Right.
So they tend to, this book draws heavily on this one. To sort of tell these stories or retell them. Snorri, this Icelandic chieftain, he basically took stories from this older one, retold them, told a lot of stories that weren't in that book. But what he says in the book is that, this is what blew my mind when I really started studying this a couple of years ago before I started writing my book. I come to this section at the end of Snorri's book. It says Gylfi was sent back basically to the earth and told, go and tell all these stories we've told you to everybody, all your people, and make sure they pass them on. And then these Aesir, these high-tech people, they get together and they go, right, now all those stories we told him, we need to decide which of us is going to play which characters in those stories. And it literally says that. And that shocked me. I thought, this is really sort of saying that these guys created these stories and then decided to play the part. And then it became obvious to me, because the next thing that happens after he gets told those stories is these people from Anatolia, then it says they went overland up into Europe, and they went to Russia, and they founded dynasties everywhere they went. They took wives, as it were. They bred with, one assumes, local earth people who were probably already the leaders and the elite, and they started these dynasties, and everywhere they went these same stories would have been told, so that when they came to Sweden and when they came to Denmark and Norway, people had already been prepared for them. They'd been told all these stories. And they went, oh, wow, Gylfi's stories were real. Look how incredible these people are. And that thing they just came in, it's a great silver thing, and the light in it's like the sun, but somehow they can control the light and it doesn't burn your eyes out. And all this, this is how I view it, that this is a story of something that really happened. And now I don't want to get too sidetracked with this, and too scholarly, but modern scholars for 150 years have have said that this is called euhemerism, which means Snorri. They always say Snorri was this devout Christian, which I believe he wasn't at all. I believe he was of the old faith, that he never was really a Christian. He was steeped in these stories, and they say, well, he just, as a Christian, was spinning these stories of great real gods as if they were just men, and putting their name to kings of Troy and heroes of ancient Greece, and trying to spin those stories and say, well, that was our people too. These, it was really cool to be related to Troy. Medieval scholars thought, that was the height of sophistication. Sort of come from like, Homer's Iliad and the Trojan Wars and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So scholars for a long time have just bought that. Oh, it's just euhemerism. Whereas I look at it and say, yeah, because you guys can't see yourselves in these stories, but now in the 21st century, it's not hard for us to imagine a therapy that extends life. We're already just about there. It's not hard for us at all to imagine, vast spaceships, Star Wars and
Yeah.
satellites and jet fighters and robots and, a thing you hold in your hands like a little TV, but it can speak to you and, it's an artificial organism and, it's super intelligent and all the knowledge of the Earth's available to you. All these things, even when I was a kid, were impossible, even in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It
Yeah.
was like impossible. Yeah, maybe way ahead in the future. Here we are now. We're biologically doing stuff. We're, synthetically growing organs and skin. And so the stuff that's in here, it's been waiting for us. I reckon it's been waiting for our time, for people like me and others to go, actually, this stuff looks like our tech. And I mean, it's not that far from us to having a space station above the Earth. And I think of a great star bridge connecting Asgard on the Earth to Asgard in space. And this is not just my fantasy. It says in these stories that the great Asgard, which means the fortress of these the Aesir, these godlike beings, was connected from the Earth to Asgard in the sky, not in heaven, as the false translations say, but in Himen or Iloftinu, which means above the clouds, up there where the planets are, right? Up in outer space. It's connected by a great tree called Yggdrasil, which means Odin's horse. And there's a bridge called the Bifrost, which is sometimes called the Rainbow Bridge. It also connects, and they travel up and down this bridge. This great tree is the connector. And this is a theory that people have been thinking about for a long time, is, the possibility of, instead of having to use rockets, we could connect a space station in, geostationary orbits, as it just stays there.
Yeah.
Over a certain spot, connect it, and then you can just run your heavy stuff up and down that thing that connects them. And it says that, the great tree's branches spread over the earth, and they knew in these old times that the earth was a globe, because they didn't think it was flat. They call it Heimskringla, which means the ball of the earth, the orb of the earth. So that's what my book's about. Is I go right into depth into the stories, and then looking at them from that lens and seeing that this really does look like the best description an intelligent medieval person could come up with, to try and pass on these stories just as they were passed on, even if he doesn't really understand what they're talking about. I think he just told it as he was told. And he spent 2 years in Scandinavia the trip from Iceland was dangerous by sea. It wasn't
Mm.
a light thing in a Viking ship. And he spent 2 years researching all this, just talking to the old people, talking to the skulls, the great poets. And I do believe there was a lot of secret knowledge that still hasn't come out that he got from the royal family of Norway and of Sweden. I discovered some secret things in Sweden that, you're like, there's two great landforms that are owned by the royal family of Sweden. They're flat-top mountains, but one's almost perfectly circular. The other one's like a triangle, and they call it Asgard and Valhalla. And they
Oh, true.
say, yeah, the Swedish royal family in their little museum on the top of it's called Hulleberg. Sorry, Hunneberg. There's Hulleberg, which is Valhalla, and Hunneberg, which is the bigger one, that's Asgard. So in the museum there, the Swedish royal family's museum, it says Odin and the Aesir, when they came up from Turkey, they came here, and this is where they built Asgard again, because that was called Old Asgard down there. Now, I hope people can follow this. I know it's convoluted, but in this Snorri Edda, the Snorri Sturluson's version of the myths, he says that Odin came to more near Stockholm. But I think he got it wrong. I think that was just a point of confusion. And the reason I think he got it wrong is because he says there's a great lake just near this place where Odin set up, and it's called Mälaren, which is a big lake, right, near, sort of in the vicinity of Stockholm. However, over where the royal family has these two great landforms, where they say Asgard and Valhalla was, there's this massive lake. It's like a sea. It's called Vanön. And the story goes that this beautiful Aesir woman, Gefjon, seems to seduce Gylfi, the wizard king, and he says to her, wow, babe, I'll give you whatever you want, how about I give you as much land as as much land as 4 oxen can plough in a day and a night, so it's a pretty down-to-earth sort of gift for a beautiful woman, but it's going to be a lot of land, and he obviously wants her to hang around. So then she goes and gets 4 oxen that she shapes, and it's sort of mythic, weird language. She gets them from a giant, and she then plows this massive hole in Sweden, which then fills up with water and becomes this enormous lake. And I've been there, and you can sort of virtually see the curvature of the earth when you look out. It's so far.
Oh, wow.
It's just, it's like literally looking at the ocean. And the story says that she somehow picked up all this soil and put it over where Denmark is and made the island of Sealand, which is where Copenhagen is now.
Yep.
And when you look at the shape of Sealand, where Copenhagen is, and the shape of this great lake that she dug, they are very similar. And,
Yeah, right.
yeah. So this is trippy stuff. Yeah, this is ancient alien fodder, but I reckon it's fair dinkum. I reckon there's something to it. And I got that feeling very strongly in Scandinavia. There's a lot of secrets that I felt like that people have always hid it, the old stories. They hid it from the church, because this is not well known, but there was some really, really severe witch hunts in the 1600s against anybody who, people still were believing in these old stories, especially in Sweden, especially in Iceland, I think. They burnt lots of people at the stake. They did their vicious, insane stuff. And I think people learn a lesson and just said, I'm not telling anybody about what we think. We're not going to, but we are pissed off, and we're not going to stop passing these stories on. You do that to us, you think we're going to forget that? That's how I am. If somebody killed my family,
Absolutely.
never going to get forgotten. Never. So yeah, so that's the skeleton of my theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any particular questions about that?
Yeah. So obviously, so we're going between like trying to keep it on a bit of a sort of alien existence sort of thing there. Like, so do you think the Nordics were potentially depicted as the gods, the Viking gods? Like, was there definitely a relation in that?
Yeah, well, I think these people reported as the Nordics, the tall, blonde, blue-eyed,
Mm.
beautiful people. I think that's the Asia. I really think they're the same. I I accept the fact that there's a number of races here, like four different races is the conservative. I've heard many more people talking about it at the top end, but witnesses have come forward to the Congress and that Hayim Ashed. Yeah, did you remember him? He was a top. He was the head of the Israeli space security.
Oh yeah, I remember him coming up. Yeah, he came forward with he was a general. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he's a professor, and he's an old man now. He's in his 90s, but he, as far as I can make out, he's totally sane. And he came forward and said, "Well, I'm just here to tell you that they've been here for a very long time. There's a Sky Council, and there's I think he said 4 races, and he reckoned that the Americans and Israel and others have got a base on Mars where they work with these beings. But the Nordics seem to be more on our side than some of the others. I've heard that the mantis-like people are pretty cool.
Yep.
The reptilians, I don't know if they're the nasty ones. Humans tend to not like reptilian things, but
Yeah, I've heard different stories about the reptilians. Like a lot of them are meant to be malicious, but then there's other sides. Like it's like every other race that you get talked about. Some are malicious, some are kind or doing different things there. It seems like everyone's got their own little agendas going on here. It's like, well, how's there no conflict with between these races? There's no big galactic war happening out in the atmosphere of Earth.
Yeah, you'd sort of think that there might be a bit of a standoff with them, or that the Earth's divided out. That's what Paul Wallace talks a lot about. Is the the Bible indicates that Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, this advanced being, he seems to think he was a sort of a reptilian for a lot of pretty good reasons, actually, from scriptures seem to indicate that. And but he's in contest with these other, the Prince of Persia and Prince of Babylon, I think, and others, these other Elohim, which means powerful ones. And incredibly, in the Viking stories, they call them the Rayin, like the Aesir get sometimes called the Rayin, which straight out means the powerful one. So it's the same word as Elohim, the powerful ones, in Hebrew. This Old Norse word, Regin, Regin, also means the powerful ones. And yeah, I think that their symbol is this symbol. It's like a circle with a cross in it, which is all throughout Europe and in Anatolia.
Yeah.
They call it the sun cross or the sun wheel, but I believe that it's a symbol for the sky people. It's a symbol of their craft. It's a symbol of the sun-like quality of their craft. And I think the Scandinavians know something about this that they don't let on, because I found that symbol everywhere in Scandinavia. And when I went to Iceland, I found it all over the place. and it just felt like it was like something weird in plain sight that no one questioned, because when people see a cross, they automatically assume it's going to be a Christian symbol.
Yeah.
And they know the Celtic cross, which has like a cross with a circle. But when I was at the All Thing, which is it's a valley of sort of lava, these two sheer cliffs, amazing lava cliffs, and it's apparently right on the fault line between the tectonic plate of America and Europe, Asia, and that's where in the Viking Age they'd have these great meetings once a year to read out the laws and to judge cases, and you became an outlaw or you get paid payment for killing. You have to pay somebody for killing their brother, or let's try to settle the feuds and stop people going to war with
Yeah.
each other. But this place, the All Thing, so it's been there for well over 1,000 years, and there's a church there. On the night that I was there, it was high summer in Iceland, so the sun really didn't go down till about 11:30. So I was there right on 11:30. I went behind the church and I saw something flat and round, and it immediately reminded me of that Asgard great mountain, flat top mountain I'd seen in Sweden. So I climbed up onto it, and there was a great cross, right? And a circle. It was like, holy crap, there's that symbol. And what's this doing here? And there was the church here, and it was meant to be a special burial ground for great creative Icelanders, but there's only 2 people buried there so far. And this thing was built like 100 years ago. And then I discovered that church that was there had replaced a much older one. And I wrote to my professor friend in Iceland and said, do you think that there was a heathen temple there before the church? And he said, I would say almost for sure. That was what the church always did. When Christianity took over from the old faith, they would always knock down the temple and build.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would still use the temple, but put Christian crosses and take down, pagan symbols. And then I thought, why did this sun cross was built there 100 years ago? Why did the architect put that there? And it's definitely a symbol of like the authority of the All Thing, but it's definitely a pagan symbol. You can find it on rock faces in Sweden that are like 4,000 years old. 3,000, but maybe older. But it's all over the place, and it always seems to be to do with these sky people, and there's always these female figures, and they often call it the sacred wedding. That book is. Oh, I can't see it, but the sacred wedding was when a powerful man from the sky came down and marries a beautiful earth girl, and then their dynasty becomes a royal lineage. This is really established. The scholars have no trouble with this. Yes, of course, that's a fable. It didn't really happen. Royal families make that up to give themselves legitimacy. However, what if it's true?
Yeah, that's
what if
right.
what if it's not just a fable? What if it's actually true? So I think, this sun cross is a symbol of the Aesir, a symbol of the old faith. Now, have you heard of, this is probably specialist knowledge, but have you heard of something called Irminsul?
I'm not sure, maybe.
It's Irmusul. So it was this sacred tree of the Saxons pre-Christian, and the Saxons, Aussies don't tend to know European geography that well, but our people in England and Scotland, Wales. A lot of them were Anglo-Saxons, so they came from these four tribes: the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, and the Frisians, who came from what's essentially Denmark and modern Holland, maybe Belgium, Frisia. And so the Saxons, like the royal family, right? Their name's not Windsor. It's actually Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. And they changed it at the start of the First World War. They changed their name to Windsor. They named themselves after the castle because it sounded so German. Saxe-Coburg-Gotha was too German when they're about to go to war with the Germans. But they are Germans. You know, the royal family are from Saxony, and they've still got property there. So the Saxons were like the last holdouts beside the Scandinavians against Christianity. And Charlemagne the Great, Charles the Great, the Holy Roman Emperor, was this butchering Christian maniac who just converted most of Europe by the sword and the axe and torture and rape and pillage and all the good stuff. And the Saxons refused to give in because they were essentially like the Viking people. They were essentially Danes, but Saxons, and they fought him off for 30 years, and in the end he had 4,500 of their leaders beheaded in one day.
Whoa.
And believe it or not, even the Nazis actually were into Charlemagne until they found that out, and they went, "Oh no, we're not gonna back this guy." That was too much for them. They were like, "Oh my god!" But those people fled up into Denmark and let the kings up there know, "This is what's coming for you, boys." They then, just after that, they built this thing called the Dunnevirk, which is a great wall, fortified wall. I think it had a couple of walls across the bottom of Denmark, which was in Saxony, to keep the Christians out. And funny enough, the first Viking raids on the monasteries in England happened like 2 years later. And funny enough, the lovely Christian priests in those monasteries were the translators for the torturers who were torturing the Saxons, right? The Anglo-Saxon priests could speak Saxon, right? So it was a real big Christian hub, and they had the power of the word. You know, they knew how to write people's names and where they lived and what they'd done and all that, keep records of all this. So they were like the Gestapo, you know. I think these Christian priests came across and worked with Charlemagne to force the Saxons any way they could to submit to Christianity. Now, I reckon when the Vikings hit Lindisfarne and Iona and those places, it wasn't like, these guys have got a whole lot of gold and silver and churchy stuff. Let's go and just take that and we'll butcher the poor old defenseless monks just because we're a pack of mean savages. I reckon they had a list of every one of those bastards and went, "Yeah, you think you got away with it?" They hit the place. "Where's Ethelred of so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? Step forward." You know, it might be a fantasy, but I really do believe that's what happened. I think that's where they hit first. That's where the Viking Age started, was a solid hit and a big message to the Christian establishment from Rome right across. Yeah, you know, we've taken enough from you guys. Now we're going to hit you. And that's what they did. They just kept hitting and hitting for 300 years.
Yeah, so it wasn't about raid and conquer. It was more about revenge and trying to take back, you know, their rightful ways of life.
Yeah, I believe at least in the start it was. You know, they were practical guys. It was also cool to get all the gold and silver and stuff. But
Yeah, absolutely.
there's no real pleasure in knocking some useless priest on the head. unless the bastard tortured your relatives.
Yeah.
And then you'd take pleasure in it.
Yeah, you would.
And it was the Christians who wrote the histories, because the people of Scandinavia, as far as we know, didn't have literacy. I suspect they did have. They certainly could write runestones and keep records. I suspect that they were further along than we believe with that. But anyway, that Viking series is pretty good. They sex it up a bit, and they got some things give me the creeps the way they present the Vikings, but essentially they got it pretty right. And I like the way they dealt with the Christian versus pagan, and
Yeah.
the two worlds, and how they tried to paint both sort of fairly in a way.
Yeah, and there's definitely no fairness to it. There's a lot of, like you say, like the Christian side of things, they wrote their own history there to make them sound better by all means. And I think they've left out a lot of dark history that they let on.
Oh yeah, and I'm not trying to paint the people of the Viking Age as all sweetness and light. Believe me,
Mhm.
they're just people, but they loved their old ways. Why would the Saxons hold out for 30 years? And that's what sort of led to this. This thing called the Irminsul, right? It's usually considered to be a Saxon version of Yggdrasil, the Great World Tree, which was always very significant. That one thing we know, it was significant to the old people, the belief in this great tree that went up to the sky. And that's where their gods came from. That's where they lived, That's where all these wonders happened. But when they recreated the thing, there's a town in northern Germany there where the original Irminsul was supposed to have been. What they've created is this great big pole, and on the top of it is a sun cross, right? Circle with the cross. And when I saw that, I thought, well, what's the chances of that? Like, that's really essentially saying that at the top of the world tree was the sun cross, which really is Asgard, because Asgard itself is said to have been divided into 12. And I can't help but picture it as a sort of a circular thing, maybe even a great spacecraft, like not really just a built city, but a massive mothership on the ground. Because 12 sounds like a clock, it sounds like the 12 sections of a clock.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why would they have that sun wheel at the top of that unless there was some old memory, mostly forgotten, about how all this was connected to those sky people who came from the sky and mated with the Earth mothers,
Yeah.
So I think this all very much leads into what's coming out now about hybridization of humans. This has been spoken about quite openly now. The CIA, you've seen that, Area 52, that podcast?
No, I'm not familiar with that one. No.
Guy with a beard about the same as mine, but brown,
Don't think
American
so.
guy. He gets a lot of very high profile people on his show.
Not old mate. I might know who you're talking about now. Yeah, who is he?
I don't
I'm trying
even
to
know. I'm sure it's called Area 52, as against Area
think of
51.
his bloody name is Chris Ramsey.
He has a lot of very high profiles
That's the one
people
I
on
think it
there.
is. Yeah,
He's
Chris
had
Ramsey.
Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar was on there. I think he might have had David Grush. He's had Michio Kaku, I'm sure, was there. But he had this guy who was in the CIA as an analyst for over 20 years. He's part Cherokee, maybe part Japanese, but I saw him a while ago saying that in the CIA, if you have Cherokee or Celtic ancestry, you get a special number because they consider people from those ancestries have much more likelihood to have psychic paranormal sort of abilities
Yeah.
and more likely to be contacted. It's, that's I was like, wow. He was saying that was on his file because he's from Cherokee nations, and the doctor said, yeah, people with Cherokee or Scottish, Irish, Welsh ancestry, maybe from Brittany and places like that, they tag them because they're more likely to have abilities. And the latest thing I saw about him, he's literally talking about hybridization, and that the CIA was also aware of that, programs by these visitors to, tweak the genetics of humans. And
Yeah. I've had a
you know,
guest, I'm not sure if you know it with familiar with the name Jane Pooley.
oh yeah, she's a friend of mine.
Yeah, I've had her on the podcast a couple of times, like, this is a while ago now. They're a lovely lady, and she
Yeah,
claims
she
to have,
is.
been involved with hybridization and claims that she's got, children who are, living or, out there now,
Yeah,
living their life, and, like, it's a
absolutely.
big claim, but, like, as you say, like, there's a history there that we aren't really aware of, and it sort of makes a bit of sense at the same time too, because like, why wouldn't they be interacting with us, trying to make not like a perfect species, but obviously develops us into something that's more than just human. We're not just like continuous drones, who live their daily lives. There, we have a connection that's of a higher self in that sort of nature. Adaptation and evolution.
Well, it's what we do to species and what we do to trees. We
Yeah.
graft things onto them, and mix up two different plants to make something new. And animals, we breed selectively, and we think as humans that's just, oh no, it's just a wicked thing to do to humans. But people in the past didn't think that. They wouldn't marry their daughter or their son off to just anybody. They'd go checking them out, see what their family line was. Was there mental illness in the family? What are their strengths and
Mm.
weaknesses? Are they good looking? Are they robust? But people would think about humans as if they're just breeding pedigree horses. And so why would these advanced beings be sentimental about it? I
That's
know
right.
love must conquer all. People should just randomly get drunk and mate with whoever the heck just
Have
falls into
massive
their
orgies.
arms. Have some kids, like that's how a lot of it goes on now. But if you were sort of running a program to try and breed a particular hybrid of your people and others, you'd sort of be more scientific about it when you.
Yeah. Well, people
But I
claim,
would,
like, the reason for hybridization is because, like, their race has become, incapable of breeding, so they're like, "Oh, no, we need to go and, protect our species and continue it on." That's why they've, abduct us and, take our, samples and such like to go and continue their breeding, and it's like, well, it's a good theory, like, it makes sense, but it's a long way to come just to go and, continue species. Like, I think the greys are probably, like, the more of the species that's claimed to be doing a lot of abductions for hybridizations. Um, but it hasn't been unheard of with the other species, like as you mentioned, like the Nordics have potentially done it as well.
it's a big subject, like the whole issue of, are they extraterrestrial? Are they some Harvard scientists put out a paper recently positing that they could, these people could have been here for hundreds of thousands of years,
Well, that's the thing.
embedded in the earth, so that their origins might have been from out there, but they've been here on a mission to study us for a very long time. And
Yeah.
the other thing is, like I would call myself a scientist in that I was an Air Force cadet officer. I was in that for 4 years. I was taught, and then I taught aviation. I used to teach supersonic aerodynamics and how jet motors work and quite technical stuff. And then I was a nurse for a number of years, and we studied what essentially was first year medicine. I topped the state in anatomy and physiology on the first year against actual medical students. And so I've got a scientific mind. I studied physics and chemistry in senior and maths, even though I was pretty crap at it. But I look at the problem of the speed of light and I just think, well, Einstein put that forward over 100 years ago. And he was bamboozled by quantum theory because he just said it was spooky and weird and he couldn't see why it could be real. But what they have found is that this does seem to be a simulation of, well, for want of a better word, consciousness. That everything, what I see now and feel is existing, but what is behind me doesn't exist until I turn around, and then it gets created on the fly, just the same as computer games. So that's a weird concept, but that apparently Nobel Prize winners reckon it's true.
Yeah, there's a good theory behind it. There really is.
And I think that, like, before digital, we couldn't imagine getting to the end of a tape, right? There's a tape from the 90s that
Oh, geez, what is that thing?
Right. This is an Icelandic radio station that I used to pick up in Sydney, and I used to tape it. So to get to the end of that, you got to sit there, winds away for a couple of minutes. But then digital comes along and you go, boom, go to the end.
Straight back to it. Yeah.
Big difference. And I think that this whole space problem is not really a problem once we can break through to the point where we can manipulate the digital. I don't think it is actually digital, but it's whatever the language is. So the language is consciousness, so we can just hop. I don't think we actually have to travel. I think we can just go. I'm going to go to these coordinates. Boom, there you are. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so you're breaking dimensions, basically.
Yeah, well, it's you just have to fundamentally see that this is not a concrete reality that's analog, where you have to fast forward to get there. That's what fast and light travel, whatever. It's thinking analog. It's thinking about, I've got to traverse all this space. But if this is virtual, then you just go, I want to go there. Bang, you go there. Same as we can just do any time on a Spotify.
The thing that gets me with the physics, like I don't know if it's quantum physics or not, but there's this bit of a smart whiz dude that he goes on through Facebook. I can't remember his name, but he goes on. I think even Einstein said the same thing too there. But the faster we go, the faster time travels, and I can't get that around my head. Like, if we're traveling at the speed of light, and we go traveling, say, to, I think it was our nearest star, like Andromeda or something like, we get there and then we come back. Something like 40,000 years has passed by the time we get back. But it's like, how does that work? Like, we're traveling so fast to get somewhere, but yet it's taking like 40,000 years as a time scale. I understand, like, as light speed, light years difference, and that sort of stuff there. But I don't know, unless Hollywood sort of ruined it for me, like, I feel like the faster we go, the slower things should be going. Like, you look at the Marvel movies or DC movies, like The Flash, he's zipping around nearly at the light speed of light, and everyone's in slow motion. It looks cool.
Yeah.
And how is that not like how we should be traveling between our distances? Like, I don't understand that part. That part doesn't compute with me.
It's it's difficult to get your head around that. I was a nerdy kid, and this older kid next door, when he went to uni, he gave me a whole heap of books, and there was a number of books about Einstein's theory of general relativity and all these questions, and it explained it. And I sort of understood back then. It's got a bit vague in my head now exactly what he was saying, but I know it's close to the speed of light you get. Time still seems ordinary to you and me if we're in the
Right,
same
yeah.
ship, but it's zipping along to those we've left behind. So that's why it's 40,000 years later. It's like we're only 10 years older, but everyone else just aged out of existence.
Yeah.
You know,
That
and you imagine
that part of
40,000 years is like totally forgotten. That's why it's really credible to think that there was human civilizations 100,000, 200,000 years ago, and we got no record of them because nothing would exist after that time. Everything would have been ground into paste by
pretty well.
glaciers and erosion and cosmic rays and etc. But this is where I have a bit of a struggle with my own theories, because I seem to find what I would consider, modern UFO level stuff that doesn't have wings, that glows, that zips around at impossible speeds, doesn't seem to be affected by G forces, can go in the thick density of water super fast, which is impossible. And even
Yeah.
air is impossible at the speeds and the turns they do. So they seem to be outside of our normal, they're not affected by our normal physics, by
Universal time.
airflow and drag and matter. They seem to be sliding in between matter or something like that. But that's where I also find in these stories, like this thing I've got on the cover, it's a brooch from a place called Lund in Sweden, and it represents this flying elf who built a flying suit and escaped from his oppressors who'd sort of crippled him. And this thing, for all the world, is a jet suit, even down to the point that it's got what I consider to be flames down. You can
Oh
see,
yeah. Yep.
I don't know if you'll be able to see, but
Yeah, you
they
can.
look
Yep.
like sort of
Oh,
hooks or something. There's a tail there, but I think they're flames. And these are the intakes up here, and these have these spirals that go from the outside and spiral in. I think they're jet air intakes, and this is where the flame comes out.
yeah.
He's got ailerons on the wings at the end. You can see a line across where you turn the aileron. So this is this is super high tech when it was made, but it's
Yeah.
a lot lower tech than these things flying around great glowing craft, which I think
Right.
were also back there. And my theory about this, the only way I can understand it, is that there was the AC of these ones that had the big glowing ships and the place in the sky, and then there was their children who were hybrids, but they didn't allow them the same level of tech, and they showed them how to make flying machines, and they gave them tech that allowed them to sort of communicate and whatever, but they weren't at that level of the real high ones.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what was happening. Like, we've talked for a long time now, so I won't go into another rave about all that. But I think there's good evidence to say that we've been visited by very high advanced beings, and then they've been hybridizing humans for thousands of years, and that those children have often been put in positions of authority or been introduced to technology that we recognize now as jets or computers or things like that. But they're enough to make them able to rule the people back then. But they didn't give them the real big stuff, because maybe they would
Yeah.
have got out of hand. Being part human, they probably would have rebelled and tried to take over and stuffed everything up. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, makes sense. Oh, look, mate, I think we'll end it there, right? Because like, we've had a good old chinwag there for a good 2 hours now. So,
Yeah.
but mate, it's been great talking to you and picking your mind there and learning more about the Nordic involvement there with between the Viking culture and such like that. And always good having a chat with you. But so definitely gonna get you back on here again and dive a bit deeper again. Um,
Oh,
you know,
thanks, mate.
and yeah, mate, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much for what you're doing, and hopefully we can find more on this Upper Main encounter, and have some people come forward and see if we can try and unravel this mystery a bit more and bring a bit more light to it, basically.
Absolutely. Hey, I love talking to you, and you're doing such a great job. And I'd like to say good day to anybody who's still listening on the live. It's pretty cool to think that there's people out there listening into our conversation, interested. And is it okay if I shout out to my own channel?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely, mate. Yeah, people will find you and contact you, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's just Viking Superpowers is all you have to remember. If you want to find my book, just search Viking Superpowers on Amazon, Viking Superpowers on YouTube, Viking Superpowers on Facebook, Viking Superpowers on Instagram and X, even though they don't get a lot of attention. I don't know how people manage to constantly update all their different platforms. But I do put interesting stuff up there at times. But Facebook's where I mostly just post interesting stuff that's going on, and every week I post a new video to my YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm doing some exciting stuff with Paul Wallace with the Ancient Knowledge Academy. That's his. It's an academy where I'm part of it, and you just pay a very reasonable monthly fee or a yearly fee, and you're part of a community, and we all talk about this sort of stuff all the time. And Paul produces things. I've just produced a 6-part series for them that
Oh,
might
nice.
make it out on YouTube. Yeah, but I produce a series of videos about this subject, and they're all very interested in it. And Paul and I have some pretty cool plans in the future. But yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, that's where to go in this field. Check out Paul Wallace and the Fifth Kind, Ancient Knowledge Academy. Check out Mauro Biglino, the Italian. Unfortunately, a lot of his stuff is in Italian, but more and more he has good English translations, and
Yeah.
the guy's a genius. And yeah, so interesting. Like, yeah, I never get bored in this field. There's so much to take in.
Oh, there's way too much. You can go down after rabbit hole, and it just takes you down all these different little areas. You're like, holy Jesus. Your brain just
Yeah,
goes, ah.
people are always sending me books. Oh, make sure you read this book, and I'm like, I got hardly time to scratch myself. I try to read
Yeah.
books, but I'm always in the Old Norse and just working on my next book, trying to get that all done. But somehow I managed to have a life and bring up my kids and make money and
That's it,
cut
yeah,
the,
like that,
cut the
normal
lawn.
life takes over and, like, your passion's there to go and try and, like, uncover some sort of truths to, what you're passionate about and, like, in this sort of field. But, you still gotta live your main life and, provide for the families there and keep them all happy. You
Yeah,
can't just go and hide away in your hole, unfortunately, and just indulge yourself. But, it's the way of life.
yeah.
But yeah, no, look, mate, thank you very much again for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure, and definitely going to get you back on here and you dive deeper again. And it's yeah, my pleasure, mate.
Awesome, Anthony. It was a
Thank you
great
very much
pleasure to
again,
be here.
mate. All the
Enjoy
best,
your
mate.
rest of
Speak
the
to
day
you
and
soon.
see you later to everybody.
Cheers, mate. Catch ya. Well, that'll do it, folks. Thank you very much for joining me this day, wherever you're listening from today, tonight, wherever you're tuning in from. But yeah, don't forget, guys, to hit the like on this bad boy there, share it out with your friends and family. And don't forget you can support the channel there with our online store there, which is in the link in the post here of this channel, this episode. Help support the channel there. It helps us build up our get some better content out there for you there. And yes, share it with your friends and family there. If you have had an encounter, hit us up with the on the channel there on the Facebook page, or at encounters down under at outlook.com.au. Love to have a chat with you. And till next time, guys. Oh, actually, hang on a second. Oh, I've totally forgotten about something that I was going to bring up. Hang on, Dave. Get you back on here. You are going to Cardwell. Well, you're not going to Cardwell,
Yes.
but you're doing a presentation at Cardwell.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be up there for 4 days. So if anyone
I
wants
see you
to
actually are
come,
coming up.
yeah, I'll be up there, and I've got my tickets. I'll be selling my book up there, and I'll also be just hanging out with everybody, and I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, as they say. And so I'm happy to chat to anyone if they want to tell me their experiences. And so,
Absolutely. Well, I'll be seeing you there anyway. So
that's
that's
awesome,
awesome.
mate. Yeah,
That's all right.
that's really cool. And some cool people coming. There's Lynn Rule, a friend of
Yep.
mine. I haven't met yet, and Rowan Bow. She's I've interviewed Rowan. I haven't met her face to face, but Lynn's a real character too. I'm looking forward to meeting her, and
Yeah. Talk to her a fair bit.
and Cheryl Gottschall, who's just an absolute legend. She runs UFO Research Queensland,
It-
and I've admired her work for many years. But I've joined the group, and they have monthly Zoom meetings, and also but if you're living in Brisbane, you can go to the meetings there. But she's going to be there. I heard that Ross Coulthard was going to come, but I got a feeling. I don't
think it
know.
was a rumor, but I don't think it's been confirmed.
Right. Yeah, it's a pity. It would be nice to have some really big names, but I think we're all credible and interesting, and people will feel
Yeah.
stoked if they came. And there's a lot happens around that area. It's a UFO hotspot itself.
Yeah. A lot of history in
And
that place.
yeah, and us Aussies, we really deserve our own UFO trail and all that. God, there's so much has happened in this country. I've had people tell me secret stuff that I'm not supposed to pass on about what their dad did, or their granddad, or their uncle who was in the military back in the 50s and 60s. And because I'm particularly interested in the old days, and with my own connections to it, so people have told me stuff, what was going on back then in Australia, and
Yeah.
there was a lot going on.
Oh
So-
yeah. Bloody oath. But yeah, I reckon bugger Ross Coulthard. We've got Bill Chalker coming up, mate. So we get to go and talk to Bill Chalker.
Well, that's it. Bill Chalker's a legend. I've been reading his stuff for so many years. I really dig people like that, especially the old timers who can tell you about things that have been going on since the start.
Oh yeah. He's an absolute encyclopedia, that bloke. He knows his stuff, and I've spoken to him a lot, and finally get to go and meet him myself, person there up at Cardwell. So that's gonna be awesome there. Go and do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure it was his research that I found out about that ANA flight out to Bougainville and back that got turned back and had to
Oh
land
yeah.
in Townsville. In that week when the Acacia Ridge happening occurred. I am definitely going to get somebody to hypnotize me at some stage soon and see what can be dredged out of my brain about that event, because I could well be just imagining it. It's just an outlandish coincidence that something happened so close to me at the same time.
Yeah.
Or I might be right. They might have just stuck me back in bed, patted me on the head with their 3 fingers, and went,
Yeah.
"Go to sleep, baby." And
You
then,
never know.
and I've woken up like, "Oh God, what just happened?"
Yeah. Yeah. Just be careful with that there. I can I've heard a lot of different stories there about the hypnotizing, they call it oh, I've lost my brain now. That's try hypnotize. I can't think. Why can't I think of it now? Bloody no, can't even think of it.
Well, I know that Cheryl Gottschall from UFO Research Queensland told me she used to do a lot of, she actually became a hypnotist and would help people with this, but she came to distrust it, that there was too much room for imagination.
That's right, and that's
And
yeah,
that's the only thing I worry about too, because I've got a really good imagination as a artist and a fiction writer as well. But I don't know. I think it would still be a good idea. I'd like to just see. I'll know. I reckon I'll know for sure whether I'm making stuff up or whether it's a real memory. And you know, when you see people's emotion and when they get into detail, especially if they start speaking a language, that's what always blows me out. When I remember, this is not the same as alien abduction, but I read a book about past life recall. And this hypnotist would take people back to a life in, say, ancient Rome, or you know, I remember one girl who was a Jew in 1340 in England, where they were getting persecuted, and
oh, I
they were
remember this
speaking
story.
they were speaking the language. They was,
Mm.
you know, they were speaking, you know, whatever language they were supposed to speak. And you know, if somebody like me started speaking Viking language, well, you'd say, well, your subconscious. What I can say consciously is not as good as what my subconscious could do, because it's
Yeah.
full of stuff. But if you started speaking perfect Old Norse, then you'd say, well, that's got to be fair dinkum. How would he possibly know that?
Yeah,
You know?
that's right. There's definitely something there, but yeah, it's just that I feel, as I've heard, with being hypnotized, it can put in false memories, or depending on who's leading it, can lead you to, you know, talking about something that's completely irrelevant to what your encounter was. You know, it's leading your story basically. Um,
Well, that's where you need to get somebody who's, you know, acknowledged as being really competent, because uh, I think I told you I was a policeman for about 4 years back in the
yeah,
80s. And we were taught to interview people, and we were taught to gather evidence so that the court wouldn't chuck it out. You know, we wanted, if we caught somebody doing something really bad, we didn't want them to get off because we didn't do all the right things in our paperwork and in our interviews. So, and one of the big
yeah,
things was, don't lead the witness, don't put stuff into their head, because that comes out in the transcript, and then the defense lawyer can say, oh, you were leading this guy, you know, you put that
yeah,
into his head. So you really got to shut up and let them talk and take that down accurately, and then decide later what it all means.
yeah. That's right.
So yeah, but
Yeah,
hypnotism's real. God Almighty, I
yeah. I want to be hypnotized myself there one day, and you know, experience it for myself, and just be something different, something
it's. Have you
sort
seen
of
that guy on YouTube? And he's an American guy who goes around hypnotizing people.
probably have.
He's really slick. He's a you know, handsome, you know, fine looking guy, real Californian sort of dude who's got the gift of the gab, but he just gets all these really totally don't believe it's all bullshit sort of guys, and next thing he's putting them under and doing all sorts of stuff in public, and
Wow.
and people get frightened of him, and you know, some people start going, oh, it's the devil, you know, it must be the devil giving him these
Yeah,
powers.
like, how can they do that? Like, how can they have the power over people's minds, just go click like that, and you're doing something that's well and truly out of your own will?
Well, that's the thing, is it's, they used to say that a hypnotist can't make you do something against your will, but I've heard that that's not true. And I I've practiced this form of Chinese kung fu for 30 years, and our old Chinese master once said our art form is a form of self-hypnosis, and we essentially try to blank our minds and just move without thinking anything. And we believe that our power comes from not using any muscle and not using any conscious strength. And that seems impossible, but I've experienced it. It's extremely powerful when you do it right. And when I was a teenager in the Air Force cadets, one night this kid hypnotized another kid, and a few of us were in the room, and it was after lights out. We had torches, and he hypnotized this kid and told him to hold his arm out to the side, and he said, "Your arm is like a steel bar, right? Can't be moved at all." And the kid's just standing there, and he said to this other kid, "Just pull on his hand." But this kid was a bit silly. So instead of pulling on the kid's arm, he actually grabbed him by the wrist. He got his arm straight out. He not only pulled on his arm, but he lifted his feet off the ground. So his whole body weight was
Holy
hanging
shit.
off this kid's wrist. And all of us, there was about 3 or 4 kids in the room, teenagers, we all jumped up in shock. And the hypnotist went, "Holy crap." And he said, "No, stop, let go. And the other kids just stand there like nothing's happening. And then he brought him to, and he said, "Do you remember anything?" He says, "No." He says, "Is your arm okay?" "Yeah." "What happened?"
Holy
He was
shit.
holding his own body weight at arm's length. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And he was just standing there, and there was no strain. And that's what our kung fu's like. When at a higher level, when you can do it, it seems impossible, the stuff you can do. It's very hard to understand how it's possible, but it is possible. So I think, hypnosis is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
mine is
like to learn
powerful, but
that.
it can also elude us as well.
Oh yeah, it's an unexplored field in a lot of ways. I mean, there's been a lot of great exploration, but it's ignored. People don't really pay much attention to psychology like they used to. So many of the problems in the world right now are so transparently psychological. If you knew psychology, you'd understand what's going on. But politics has taken over everything. It's
Yeah.
all ideology rather than science, People have a belief system, so everything's got to conform to that. It's like a religious type of way of thinking. They don't sort of pull back and go, "Well, what's really happening here? What's this person really about? What's their hidden drives?" And anyway.
That's it. All right, mate. We'll finish this up there, and yeah, there's a lot to go and break on apart on that too. So we could be going here for hours.
Yeah.
We could. But right, mate, I'll definitely see you in Carbwell then. So look forward to that as well.
Yeah. Groovy, mate.
Right, mate.
See you
We'll talk to
later.
you again.
See ya.
Right, see you, mate. Right, yeah. So yeah, definitely, guys. Check out Carbwell if you're in the area there. Carbwell up in far north, tropical Queensland. There, I believe it is on the 6th till the 9th of August. So definitely go and check that out. So there's a few good heavy hitters going there. David's going to go there. Myself, I'm covering the whole weekend as well. Bill Chalker, Grant Levac, Rowan Bowe, Lynn Rule, who we've had on the we had both those lovely ladies on the podcast here, so you can check out their episodes as well. And a few other names there as well, which come to go and enjoy the festival there. Oh, that's right, and Cheryl Gottrell as well. But I think she's doing an online seminar. But yeah, if you can come up there and check it out, it's going to be an awesome weekend, lots to do, and it's just an absolute wonderful, beautiful place itself. There, I do have a last year's festival coverage there, so go check that out on the channel here. Go and check out what you can sort of look forward to and enjoy there on the weekend. But otherwise, guys, all the best, and I'll catch you next time there. Don't forget to go and hit a like of this bad boy and share it with your friends and family. And until next time, I'll catch you all later and enjoy. Hooroo. Catches.